Today on Law Weekly, the Chairman Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, speak about the concerted efforts to win the war against graft. We also have a recap of the top legal stories in the news, plus our interview with the chairman of the largest branch of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Lagos branch. The NBA 2016 elections are just a month away, and on the program we'll begin a series of critical discussions to help you understand the process. That's our lineup for today. Hello and welcome. I am Shola Sheyeli. Let's begin with a report on a lecture held in Lagos, the judiciary, the media, anti-graft agencies, and the fight against corruption. That was the theme of the 2016 annual lecture of the National Association of Judicial Correspondents. Issues of media hype in trial, selective prosecutions, and more were discussed. Here's the report.
Prof was talking, the former Attorney General.
The chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption, Professor Itse Sagay, told this gathering of journalists and lawyers that the claim in certain quarters that the president is concentrating only on corruption and not governance is wrong.
All that my committee has done in the last 10 months has been completely on our own motion and instigation, because we have people in that committee who know what to do. We have not received any instruction, direction, or monitoring by the presidency. The only way the presidency is involved is that we issue reports and send to them. That's all. So the president is doing his work. Budget has been passed. He's prosecuting that budget. He's involved in the day-to-day governance, in the policy of his party to bring up the welfare and security and happiness of Nigeria. He's not doing anti-corruption work. He has set the various agencies and authorities in place, and he's doing his own work. I think I need to emphasize that, because a lot is being said about the president being too involved. He's not involved.
Professor Sagay says his committee is working on setting up special courts to speed up the process of prosecution for financial crimes. He encourages everyone to join in the war and support the efforts of the anti-graft agencies.
We essentially need to protect the assets of this country, which have suffered so much in the last 6 years. Individuals taking away billions in a situation in a country where there are millions and millions of youths with degrees who don't have jobs. When civil servants are not being paid in 27 states in the country. When so many roads are not being repaired. Hospitals are not equipped. And yet, a few people will sit down and share our common patrimony and take away billions per person. I think those who are arguing the other way should look at the consequences. Maybe you don't have an aunt who has lost her life trying to have a baby in a hospital without equipment. Maybe you've not lost an uncle on the Ibadan road, which is in a bad shape, but cannot be fixed because there's no money. When these things get personal, that is when we appreciate the enormity of the problem.
The EFCC equally solicited the support of everyone, and especially the media.
In respect of the anti-graft war, the media is often accused of media hype, sensationalism, or a media trial of suspects in corruption-related issues. However, there are diverse opinions about this. If I may ask, is there media trial really? Is it a guise by the corrupt to remain unreported? Do the media have the power of prosecution and adjudication? These are issues needing honest responses. To me, media reportage of corruption cases, from arrest through prosecution, has helped in no small measure to bring the issues of corruption to public domain, to erase suspicion and win public support for the anti-corruption war. On the part of the anti-corruption agencies, critics of the agencies are wont to believe that the agencies are selective in their approach to fighting corrupt practices. Again, this is a perception matter because there is no single suspect of any of the agencies that has come to the public space with claims of innocence of any kind after they've been brought to book. It is the same thing with those accusing the agencies of corruption and compromise in discharge of their duties. Such perception issues can only be established if there are proofs to justify them.
From that report, let's move on now to the courtrooms and track some of the major stories that made the news.
We'll begin with the report that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) is set to arraign a former Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Andrew Yakubu, a former Director of the NNPC, Abiye Memeri, another former MD of the NNPC, Victor Briggs, an ally of the former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Diezani Alison Madueke, Mr. Jide Omokare, and an oil mogul, David Mbanefo. The EFCC has already filed 4 counts of money laundering against the men before a federal high court, Abuja. 2 other firms charged along with them are Atlantic Energy Brass Development Limited and Atlantic Energy Drilling Concepts Limited. They are all scheduled to be arraigned on the 4th of July. The Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, last week asked the High Court of the FCT Abuja to quash the forgery charges instituted against him and other co-defendants, or in the alternative, adjourn the case indefinitely. On June 10, the federal government had preferred the 2 counts charge of criminal conspiracy and forgery of the standing rules of the Senate used for the leadership election of the presiding officers of the Senate in June 2015 against the Senate President, his deputy, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, and 2 others. The 2 other co-accused persons are a former clerk to the National Assembly, Salisu Meikasua, and his then deputy, Benedict Efeturi. In an application filed last week Wednesday, Dr. Saraki said compelling him to face the fresh forgery charges alongside his ongoing trial before the Code of Conduct Tribunal would jeopardize his right to fair hearing. A former Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development in Lagos State, Mr. Olutoyin Ayinde, has testified at the Lagos High Court sitting in Ikeja in the matter of the collapsed building of the Synagogue Church of All Nations, which killed over 116 people. The Lagos State government had filed 111 charges bordering on criminal negligence, manslaughter and failure to obtain building permits against the trustees of the Synagogue Church and the 2 engineers who constructed the building and their companies. The incident occurred on September 12, 2014 in the Ikotun area of Lagos. A former commissioner who testified says that there was no truth in the reports that the building collapse was caused by radiation from a plane that flew over it. The court has adjourned till this week to enable the prosecution tender documents from the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, the flight path coordinates of the aircraft, the church's building approval, and the survey of the collapsed buildings. And we round off with the reports that the Lagos State High Court sitting in the Igboshere area has adjourned till October 24 and 31 hearing in the case brought by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission against the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ricky Tafa. Justice Aishat Okwesonwo told the parties in court as she was in a poor state of health and had just suffered a flooded chamber from the rains of early last week, which even affected some of her court documents. The EFCC's counsel, Mohammed Abba, had told the court that 2 of his witnesses were in court and ready to testify. A defense counsel, Abiodun Owonikoko, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, also indicated his readiness to proceed. Justice Okwesonwo, however, told the packed courtroom that she could not proceed with the trial. She explained that her court had not sat since Monday because the courtroom had been affected by the rains and the judge's chamber had been flooded.